We are never truly lost. Well, okay, sure. Maybe we get turned around for a few days in the woods, where life just feels like it's getting the best of us and everything's going wrong. And I'm Mike Martin, and I've stood right where you're standing, lost, beaten down, like nothing's ever gonna change. And that's why I built this camp. And that's why I'm inviting you to join me and all the members of this wild community. Because you know what, friend? It does get better. So come along with me into the wild and let me show you this awesome, unique skill set that lays within inside of you. With help from the land, we're gonna unlock the steward that's inside each and every one of us that will lead the way out of the darkness and into healing. Here at the Camp of Healing on Project Mindfully Outdoors. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Project Mindfully Outdoors. And as always, I'm your guide, Mike Martin. And, you know, if you've been following the show for a minute, you probably realized that something was missing yesterday. And that was the Campfire Conversation. But actually, it's not missing. What happened is we decided to launch the Campfire Conversations out on its own voyage, and we let it become its very own show. So that would be episode number 2 that aired yesterday on its very own feed, the Project Mindfully Outdoors Campfire Conversations. You can find it on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. And the reason that it became its own show is because of the awesome new advances in podcast technology, allowing us the opportunity to make it more interactive and utilize the video footage. So I figured, you know, it was probably a good opportunity to get on that train and present those conversations to you the way that they were really meant to be seen. And that's actually watching. That way you catch everything. You get to see everything. And I feel like it's a beautiful addition to the Campfire Conversation. It's a great upgrade. So I'll link to it in the show notes, and I really hope that you'll take the time to subscribe to that show and, you know, help us continue to grow and further our message. You know, yesterday my conversation with Heather Ivany was very intriguing, because we talked a lot about the Akashic records and, you know, how tapping into that can really forward one's journey, because it really brings a lot of understanding, not only where the energy of your soul has been, but also where it's going. And I think that sets up beautifully what I want to start using Thursdays for, because we talk so much about the people that have walked the trails before us that I thought it would be really fun and interesting to introduce you individually to the person behind the character, at least as best as we can reconstruct. And I want to start this little series with really the man that pulled me out of the depths of my personal despair and kind of set me on a much better path, which came about from one of the books that I talk about a lot and that I read a lot. In fact, I read the meditations easily 20 plus times a year, just because every time that I meet that book, there's always something new, there's always something different, or I end up kind of perceiving the things that I read in a different light. So I think that, you know, it's important to spend a lot of time within certain books. You know, not only books that challenge you, but also books that you truly enjoy. And I think the ones that really challenge you end up becoming books that you truly enjoy because of that challenge. So on that note, let's go ahead and get right into it. Well, spring is here, and I'm sure you're wondering how you can take your adventure up to the next level, right? I mean, we're always looking for that sort of new boost. So you want to know a secret? I've been turning to my good friends at FreshCap to take advantage of all the amazing natural boosts that come from mushrooms. That's right. And the results, well, they speak for themselves. Backed by a 100% rock-solid customer happiness guarantee. I'm positive you're going to love the results as well. You know, FreshCap has been with us right from the start of this journey. They were the first one to sign on and to back me on this mission. And throughout that time, I've really come to trust and rely on their amazing products. So give yourself a little bit of added self-care this spring by adding the ultimate mushroom to your self-care regimen and take your adventure to the next level. Just visit freshcap.com or hit the link in the show notes. And while you're there, use promo code PROJECTMindfullyOutdoors10 to save 10% on your order today. That's freshcap.com and promo code PROJECTMindfullyOutdoors10. To not allow the soul to be dyed purple appeared to be the mission statement that can best be defined as the life of Marcus Aurelius. And there's something so striking and intriguing about that path that can be outright life-changing just by experiencing the dust that Marcus walked. And when you look back at the position that he held as the Emperor of Rome, and you dive into and begin to explore the man behind that crown, what you'll find is the framework for a narrative that can set anybody on a path for success and for finding the true nature that lays within. This was a man that history would go on to dub as the Philosopher King. And in retrospect, he was the last of the 5 great kings. It was Emperor Hadrian who would go on to see the potential that laid within Marcus at a young age, and he would take the time and the effort to chart a path for the young Verissmus, as he affectionately nicknamed him. Knowing that Marcus Aurelius would still need time to be groomed for the throne, Hadrian adopted his predecessor, Antoninus Pius, who would in turn go on to adopt and groom Marcus for that position of absolute power. In fact, in Meditations itself, it opens up with a collection of gratitude that Marcus wrote down, thanking those who not only groomed him for power, but also taught him about life and the experiences, prepared him for the things and the challenges that he would face. There's a few stories that were handed down about his initial rise to power, and I feel like they really go a long way to putting into perspective that mission statement. Because when it comes down to the decisions that Marcus made, the first of them being, number one, he never asked for the job, and he always worried about the effect that absolute power could have on him. He had seen so many emperors died by that color purple and just rotten to the soul, that he was emphatic about preventing that from happening to himself. In fact, he was visually seen weeping when he took power and recalled a dream that he had had. It was one where he was standing and his shoulders were covered in ivory and gold as he donned the purple, reassuring himself that he was indeed capable and able to carry the weight of not only a nation, but also the expectation without allowing it to corrupt himself. This, of course, really will go on to highlight that lifelong mission. And the second major point worth looking at is that once Marcus was given this absolute power, the thing he does with it is he gives half of it away by making his adopted brother, Licinius Marinus, co-emperor. It goes without saying, the way that things normally worked out through history, if you're not the one chosen, things don't go so well for you. Normally the odd man out is removed and is killed in order to take that threat for that chair away. Instead of following that same blood-stained path, Marcus refused to stand as emperor until the same powers and titles were given to Varinus, making it the first time that the Roman Empire was ever ruled by co-emperors. In many ways, this could be considered as an attempt by Marcus to install a sort of checks and balance system for himself, further preparing himself and preventing that color purple from dyeing his very soul. And for all the uncertainty and challenges that would go on to cloud the reign of Marcus Aurelius, one has to look no further than Meditations to be able to put really their feet in the boots that walk that trail and discover the power of looking inward in order to project the presence of steadfastness and unbiased leadership in the face of both trouble and heartache. Leading a nation through the face of almost a constant war, and on top of that a plague that he himself would eventually finally succumb to. Those things were really the only a backdrop to the most difficult pain that any parent could ever have to face. And that's the challenge of burying one's own children. And Marcus Aurelius was tasked with doing this not once, but multiple times, because only 5 of his at least 13 children would go on to outlive him. And during these heartbreaking times, Marcus would turn inward, and he would write to himself, reminding himself of the medicine that laid within the words of Epictetus. And still amidst a trail that one can only imagine was lonely at times and even depressing at others, He filled that journey with acts of nobility and graciousness. There's a story that took place during the Antonine Plague that I really feel highlights this, where Marcus essentially holds the most elaborate yard sale of all time. When he goes through the palace and he starts marking everything for sale with the intention of raising enough money to help all the people around him that were suffering through the plague and everything else that was going on. You know, it's amazing to look at the fact that with all the power that he held in his hand, instead of using it in a self-aggrandizing sort of fashion, he put that power to work in order to help the greater good of all the people around him, whether he knew them personally and called them friend or family or not. It was of no difference, because contributing to the greater good, just the way that the bees and the ants tend to their own specific little piece of the universe, is all that any one man can do. And when his final moments began to tick away, and all of his friends and subjects stood around weeping for the pending loss of the philosopher king, he beckoned them with his final words to go out and meet the rising sun, for he was already beginning to set. And it was there in the midst of an old war camp that Marcus Aurelius breathed his last and departed from his voyage here on Earth. And you know, even though that's just a small synopsis of the life and times and the journey of Marcus Aurelius, I feel like it really highlights what it is to have a mission statement in your life and to do everything in your power, and then reach outward and discover other tools and techniques that you can add to your backpack in order to achieve that mission statement. You know, throughout meditations, Marcus constantly talks about just how short life is and how important it is to live and be present within the moment, because we've all made the voyage to be here and to live our journey, live our story, and at some point we have to disembark and set sail into that vast ocean of the unknown. And it's having that ability, I think, to look back and say that I collected pages within an unseen book with my time here, that makes departing on that voyage so much not only easier, but also able to be done in a way that's filled with grace and gratitude. This portion of Project Mindfully Outdoors is being brought to you by the leaders in water purification, Aqua Tablets. Now, if you enjoy hitting the backwoods and getting off the beaten path, I don't have to tell you just how important having a backup hydration plan really is. And that's why I keep Aqua Tablets in every one of my packs, no matter where I'm setting out to go. Heck, I even keep a bottle in the truck all the time, because they take up zero space, and in the event that you need to find some clean drinking water, they're always there. With no added weight, it equals peace of mind. So hit the link in the show notes today and grab some aqua tablets and set up your backup plan. Hey friend, it's Mike, and as we wrap this up today, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the podcast, and I hope that you enjoyed and you found some value within it. If you have, I highly encourage you to swing over to projectmindfulloutdoors.co, and while you're there, sign up for the newsletter, because that newsletter is jam-packed with not only tips and tricks for the everyday walk of life, but also inspiration to get out in the wilderness and to become one with nature and discover yourself even further. But on top of that, it's also filled with insight that you don't necessarily get on the podcast. So I'll see you over there. And until next time, my friend, get out there in the wild. That's where the stillness and the adventure lies. See ya.